both sophomores and attending nursing majors at ECU.
Yes, and we're trying to figure out what we want to specialize in once we get into the program. So we made a few tips for you guys to help you decide what you want to specialize in.
Some tips are doing your research as far as knowing everything about the specialty you might go into, and you have to know your passions and likes and dislikes so you're happy in the job that you go into.
Exactly, so let's get started.
I told y'all to do research, so here's our research we did at the library.
We looked at a list of 20 nursing specialties and we narrowed it down to 5. What are they, Autumn?
Neonatal nurse, nurse anesthetist, ER nurse, nurse practitioner, and
Pediatric nurse.
pediatric nurse.
Let's look at the specifics of each of these 5. Let's talk neonatal.
First of all, they make $65,000 a year. That's pretty big bucks.
Oh yeah.
And all you need is a bachelor's degree, but most of them have their master's degree, but you do have to work with neonatals just so you get to experience how you have to treat them.
And most of them work for about 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts anytime during the day. So there is a good amount of flexibility, but you are going to have to work a lot of hours as any other registered nurse would. Now let's talk about nurse anesthetists.
Let me first tell you how much money they make.
How
They
much?
make $154,000 a year.
That's a lot.
That is like mega bucks.
You can make a lot of burritos with that.
Like, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But they make so much money because they have to go to school for like 17 years. So first they have to go to school like everybody else to get their BSN, which is their bachelor's in nursing degree. And then they have to work for 2 years after that as a regular nurse. And then they have to go back to school to get their MSN, which is master's in nursing. But then this time they have to work for 2 more years, but in acute care, which is the ICU or the ER. And then, depending on the school and regulations that keep changing and stuff, they can either get their license in a nurse anesthetist, or they have to go to school to get their PhD, and then they can get their license. But that keeps changing, so we'll keep posted on that one.
Yep, and so according to nurse theory, since nurse anesthetists are always needed in the hospital,
Because you gotta knock them out to cut them open.
they may work about 48 to 50 hours per week, which is quite a lot. And they may work like 24-hour rotation shifts for about 2 to 3 days a week.
But
So
they're making good money while they're doing it.
yeah, that
So-
might be better. I don't know.
Always an option.
Yep. Now let's talk about ER nurses.
So according to nursejournal.org, nurses make about $65,000 a year, which isn't bad, isn't great. It's kind of right there in the middle, but
Yeah, it's still money.
it is still money. But to be an ER nurse, you have to have your BSN, which means you have to have your Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. You can't just go for 2 years, you have to have the full 4-year degree.
Mhm.
But after the 4-year degree, you have to work for a couple of years in the trauma center or in the emergency room to obtain experience, and then you can go on and you can get your license for trauma.
Yep. And so, according to Monster Worldwide, more than 50% of ER nurses say that they work more than 10-hour shifts. Which, I mean, it's not bad
not too
for
bad.
it's not too bad for like a nurse shift, but I mean, it's still,
Yeah.
it's a little rough. And then they also say that it's a fast-paced environment, which you can expect. You're working in the ER. There's a ton of patients coming in with a bunch of different problems with them.
But it's no Grey's Anatomy. It really isn't that bad. It's a
Exactly.
fast pace, but it's not as dramatic and life-changing as you might see on TV.
Exactly. So
Not bad.
it may be a possibility.
Not bad. Now let's talk nurse practitioners.
According to nursejournal.org, most nurse practitioners make about $94,000 a year, which is a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty
I'd
good.
like to make that much. And so, however, what they have to do is go to school for a long time. They would have to get their BSN, gain experience for a few years, gain their MSN, and then they would have to take an exam to earn their license in that.
And as far as how long they work and how often they work, Nurse Theory says that they can work anywhere from 8 hours to 24 hours, and the pace depends on if you work in a hospital or a doctor's office, so it really just depends on where you work.
Exactly. Now let's talk peds.
They only make $65,000 a year, but I mean, it's pretty good money still, but not
Still
as good as
good.
her, but that's where I'm going to be at. But they have to get their BSN, which everybody does,
Mhm.
but then some can get their MSN if they feel like it, but you don't have to, but you do have to work under somebody and get experience before you can actually work by yourself.
Yes, and so most pediatric nurses work about 8 to 12-hour shifts. It just depends on how busy the day is and how many patients they have. Also depends on the pace. Some days you have more patients, you can be a faster pace and more busy versus a smaller amount of patients that you have that day.
Not bad.
Nope.
All right, so now we're at Flanagan, where one of our nursing classes are.
So we're going to talk about what's most important to us when choosing a specialty.
So things like how fast-paced it is, time flexibility, the money you make, or extra school. Sound important?
Those are all important.
Okay, so if you had to rank them, 1 being least important, 4 being most important, how would you do it?
Let's see. Well, 1 for most important would be the pace of the job. Then it would go to money, time flexibility, and then lastly it would be extra school. What about you?
Okay, mine, I would have extra school first because I don't want to make it any longer than I have to.
Understandable.
And then mine would be time flexibility, and then pace, and then money.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
We're both different, so we might choose different specialties, but that's okay.
However you feel about certain things will make you choose a different career path. So it is what it is.
Exactly.
All right, and now we're at the cupola. Hopefully where we're taking graduation pictures when we're done with school, whenever we're done with school.
Whenever.
So still choosing a specialty, it's important for you to keep your passions in mind to end up liking what you do, because who wants a job they don't want to do? And
Exactly.
after all this school.
You want a job that you want to be excited about. So I know that I'm a people person and I love being around people all the time. So what? And so I know that I want to work as a nurse that would work directly with patients all the time. I know some nurses don't work with patients as frequently, but I'd like to do that. I also know that I love working with babies and infants and caring for them, so that might be a specialty I could look into some more.
Maybe.
And also, I know that I like a slower pace. Probably an ER nurse wouldn't be for me just because that's so fast-paced. I do like adrenaline once in a while, but something more slower paced would be more for me.
And then for me, my most important thing is not going back to school. So that immediately knocks out a nurse anesthetist and nurse practitioner, because I keep taking money out and I can't pay it back, so I need to take as much school out of it as I possibly can. So those 2 knocked out already.
So after doing our research and talking about what's important to us and our likes and dislikes and passions, we've come to the conclusion of what our specialties will probably be when we get into nursing school.
Cheers.
So I know that I want to be a nurse practitioner. I love the pace. I get to work with patients all the time. It's a more slower paced environment, which is great for me. And also I would be able to make a lot of money, which that's not like the most important to me, but it is a
So
bonus. I'd be able to be financially stable. And lastly, I could open my own practice, which is something I've always dreamed about doing. So that's exciting. I finally figured it
If
out.
I wasn't gonna be a nurse, you could be my nurse, but whatever. So after all my research, I decided that I wanted to be an ER nurse. But before that, I only had peds left, neonatal, and ER, and I knocked those 2 out because of the pace. I want a fast pace, and the money's all the same, so it didn't really matter. They all have a BSN. I wanted to pick, and I love the pace. I'm so excited to work in a career where it's like go, 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 because my brain's like go, go, go. So I can't wait.
So excited.
So we hope this helps. Learning tips and stuff, learning your likes and dislikes, and gotta have passion in there.
Yep,
And
gotta
I
have
hope
passion.
you're staying here with
Where
us
we are.
in 4 years, graduating from nursing.
Have fun
Bye.
and stay in
Thank
school.
you.
Bye. Thanks for
An anesthesiology nurse. Nope, no.
Now let's talk about nurse anesthesis. Yep, I did that.
To knock people out, you gotta cut them open. Fuck, I said it wrong.
You good?
It is.
Now let's talk peds. Autumn.
Sorry. According to Nurse Journal,
Now let's talk peas.
you can't come in there. Danger.
Oh.